All right, good afternoon. David Johnson here once again for Strategy Stream. Glad that you are here today. We are working our way through a strategic process on these strategy streams, weekly events, Wednesdays, 1 p.m. Eastern. And here we are on November 4th, 2020, the day after the U.S. election, and a lot of crazy stuff going on. But regardless of the ultimate outcome of the U.S. election, we are moving forward with our businesses, with our organizations. We have work to do. So if you have been with us in the past on the last few sessions, you know that we're all about developing a strategic plan to move forward from 2020, whether it's the pandemic, COVID-19, or whether it's the election or the changes in our lives that have been going on. As business owners, as entrepreneurs, as maybe executive directors of nonprofits, as people responsible for growing revenue, growing our impact, marketing, we have to have a strategic plan to move forward. None of us have unlimited time or unlimited funds, and that means that we have to have a strategic approach to how we move forward. So that's what our strategy stream times have been all about. We're several sessions in now, and it is worth taking just a quick moment to recap to help kind of set the stage for where we are today and where we're going to move forward from as we move into today's strategy stream. So what I'd like to do is just take a quick look at what we've been talking about so far, and we'll do a quick recap along those lines. So the fundamental sort of analogy that we've been working from in Strategy Stream has been that we're essentially operating with, kind of a three-legged stool. And I like this analogy because the three components that make up a solid digital marketing strategy, or even a non-digital marketing, just a solid business strategy, if we're going to be effective at communicating, at marketing, at attracting people into our businesses, into our organizations, at having the right kind of impact, we've got to have all three legs of our stool in place. And yeah, a three-legged stool can't stand without all three. So you get the idea. The first leg of our stool, so to speak, in this analogy that we've been working with is the target. In other words, who is it that we're trying to attract into our businesses? And we spent quite a bit of time on this previously, a couple of sessions back. It's about having a target, but more importantly, it's about having a very narrowly defined target. And that means that we want to have not just a place to aim, but a bullseye. And when we narrowly define the bullseye of our target market, what I mean by that is that we're looking at the ideal customer, not just a demographic, but also looking at psychographics. Very, very specifically, who is it that if we attract more of those people into our business, into our organization, they're going to be ideal. We're going to do our best work. They're going to have a good experience. We're going to get paid. We're going to have the outcomes that we want, and we're going to do a fantastic job for those people. So narrowly defining the target to the exclusion of people that we might be willing to serve, right? So this isn't about knowing all of the types of people we're willing to serve, but it's about narrowly defining that ideal group. The second leg of our stool is when we move back and we, sort of borrowing from the archery analogy again, we have a field, maybe on, one side of the field is the target with the bullseye on it that we just talked about. But on the other side of our field over here is the archer with the bow. And when we're talking about the archer with the bow, we're talking about our identity as businesses, as an organization. And we spent some time on this in a separate session, and we talked about defining what it is that people are really buying when they purchase from us. What is it that is our true product or service? Not the widget that we sell, not the service, but defining it in terms of the benefits, the outcomes, the things that people are really buying. And there's the old analogy, no one buys a drill bit, they buy a hole. And the drill bit is just the mechanism that will get them the desired outcome. And we spent quite a bit of time on this. So again, just to recap real quickly, we need to have a clear definition of the target that we're aiming at, the bullseye very specifically, but also our identity as a business. Who is it that we really are? What is it we really sell? What's our true product or service? When we have those two pieces in mind, and again, stealing from the archery analogy, then we can get to the third leg of our stool. So if we are the archer with the bow and we're aiming at the bullseye on the target, what is it that we fire? And this says today, but this is just a slide I'm reusing. But what is it that we fire at the bullseye that's going to penetrate the heart of the bullseye and therefore cause us to have an impact? In other words, what is the message that we're trying to deliver through our marketing? What is the overall strategic messaging for our business? And our homework from our last strategy stream, so if you were here last time, we defined our homework as, I want you to take the bullseye and all the things you know about the bullseye, the demographics, the psychographics of your ideal customer, take the identity that you built and defined for your business, the archer with the bow, your true product or service, and then put those together and combine it into a message. We gave the example of a Mercedes-Benz marketing executive that, anecdotally, this was reported to me, and I told the whole story previously, but this Mercedes-Benz executive said, our messaging for the types of customers that we're trying to attract is, if you buy our car, it'll make you a more valuable person. And again, you're never going to see those words in print. You're not going to see them show up in an ad, a television spot, a radio spot, whatever it might be. But the sort of fundamental idea, the core of it, becomes the sort of overarching message, and that idea gets disseminated out through all the various mechanisms that someone might use. If you were Mercedes-Benz, for example, you might use all those channels we were just talking about: television ads, print ads, magazine ads, digital ads, video content, whatever. You might use all of that stuff to deliver that message, and ultimately your goal is to penetrate the heart of the bullseye. So how are you doing so far on these three pieces? And if you have missed a session, so we spent an entire session on the bullseye, we spent an entire session on the archer with the bow, we spent an entire session last time on the message, the arrow. And so if you haven't seen one or more of those, you're definitely going to want to go back and work on those, because those pieces become the most critical stuff that you need in order to move forward with everything else that we're going to be talking about as we move forward with Strategy Stream. And again, our goal here with Strategy Stream is to help you develop the most strategic, effective plan that you possibly can develop, and to execute it with a maximum return on your investment, whether we're talking about investing time or whether we're talking about investing money, the time of your team, your staff, outsource, people that you might be working with, marketing companies, contractors, whoever it might be that's going to be doing the heavy lifting, so to speak, or the executing of your strategy. You want to have the best shot. Now, no marketer should ever tell you, if you ever hear a marketer tell you, this plan is guaranteed to work. If you ever hear someone say that, I'm going to be really suspect, because what I know is, and what we all should know is, that there's no marketing strategy, there's no plan. There's a strategy, yes, maybe principles that work all the time, but there's no actual plan that's going to work every single time, or that you can predict the outcomes for without testing it. So when we move forward from having the foundation laid, so we've spent a lot of time laying foundation, but as we move forward into actually articulating next steps, what are the things we're going to do? Are we going to run Facebook ads? Are we going to create video content for the web? Are we going to tweet? Are we going to run print ads? Are we going to do direct mail? Whatever all of the mechanisms are that we might use, those mechanisms, having been based on this foundation, will have a much higher likelihood of being effective than if they were not based on the strategic foundation that we've been talking about so far. And that's the reason to spend so much time and energy. And by the way, this is one of the things I learned years ago. We started this company. I started this company in 1998 and was just doing consulting work for most of the first 12 years of the business. In fact, I wasn't even full-time until several years later in this business. But most of that time I was doing consulting work, and the consulting projects were typically big projects and they had large fees associated with them. And in order to help win that business, what I would do with clients is I would work through these processes that we've been talking about so far, identifying the bullseye, getting really super clear on the identity of the business, and then crafting messaging, right? I would do a lot of that work for free because it was a way for me to get to the consulting project that I was ultimately trying to get. And that was successful. One day, though, it occurred to me that the very most valuable work that I was doing wasn't the actual implementation and all that execution. It was the strategy stuff. And so as time went by and we began to develop a team and provide services, aside from consulting, but actually services, we started to put strategic work that focused on those three core ideas that we've just laid out for you at the beginning of every project, and we charged a fee for it. And you know what? Our effectiveness went way up because when we started to attach real value to the strategy work, and when clients began to pay us for that value, they were a lot more invested in it. When it was free and they weren't having to pay for it, then it was like, okay, all right, I'm kind of tracking. But when they paid for it and it was we sold it as a discrete piece of the work that we did, we found that people were a lot more engaged and it increased the effectiveness of the whole thing. So we run the risk by doing Strategy Stream for free and walking you through this at no charge to you. We run the risk of having you kind of zip through and not really give it the attention that it really does need. And I'm aware of that, okay? But I also know that if you treat it as if it's perhaps one of the most valuable things you will have done for your business, and some of our clients have even said, this is the most valuable thing I've ever done for my business, period, right? Is just work through that strategic process. And of course, we'll facilitate it with them. We're not giving them a worksheet and turning them loose or playing them a video. We're working with them at a very, in a very hands-on way in those situations. But they'll say, this is the most valuable thing I've ever done. Why is that? Because it creates clarity in a way that you may not have ever had a reason to have in your business. And when you have clarity, the decisions you need to make moving forward become a lot simpler. It's a lot easier to say no to the things that are not going to be effective. So, for example, when you're evaluating what marketing channel to use moving forward, is it Facebook ads, is it direct mail, whatever it is, that kind of decision making becomes so much simpler when you have this strategic foundation in place because there's a laser-like focus on the outcomes that you really want to achieve. Okay, so how do we then translate those three elements, which hopefully by now you've articulated well? Maybe you even have a photograph of the bullseye of your target market. A lot of times we do that. We'll write up a persona that has a name, or if it's a couple, it'll have the couple's names. And we'll have a photograph and we'll list out, this is the car they drive. This is exactly where they live, what kind of house they have, how many kids, what do they do for a living, all the things that we know. But also, again, psychographics, what kind of thinker are they? What are the things that cause them to be attracted to us versus competitors? What is it about their thought process, their wiring, their personality, or whatever? Okay. Maybe you have a persona written up. If you don't, that's a great idea because it gives you someone to talk to, someone to write for, someone to think about, and to really aim. You can really have a bullseye. You have that piece, you have the clarity on your business, you have the messaging. Once you have all those three things in place, what do you do next? How do you translate that foundation into action, into an actionable plan for your business? Well, the first thing I want to say about that is that if you've done the work that we've articulated so far, by now you will have spoken to or communicated directly with some clients, some customers, some past clients and customers, hopefully the people that were ideal. And you have some sense of what's changed in their world. And I say that with a little bit of trepidation this week, because as we think about election results and outcomes this week, there's so much emotion on both sides, and it's not that there are only two sides. In reality, there are lots of different ways in which people will think about the election and the outcome. But there's a lot of emotion, more perhaps than I've ever seen in an election in my lifetime. And so there could be radical changes in people's emotion and their thought processes about their own futures that will shift one way or the other depending upon the ultimate outcome of the presidential election here in the U.S. If you're outside the U.S., this won't have zero impact, but it may have less impact. But inside the U.S., it could have a very, very significant impact. So my caveat for what I'm about to say is that even if you've had some conversations with people recently, don't stop doing that. Keep your thumb on the pulse of your bullseye, your target market folks, and do what you can to sort of find out from them how things may be shifting. Because remember, as we talked last week about messaging, we're talking a lot about emotion. Marketing's job is to connect with the heart of people. When I say you want your arrow to penetrate the heart of the bullseye, I mean that very specifically. It's an emotional thing. People don't buy what they need, they buy what they want. We must capture their hearts before we can apply sales processes to help them justify their decision. The mind justifies what the heart desires. With that in mind, then, we got to know a lot about the emotions, and that could be shifting even yet. And of course, it'll continue to shift coming out of the pandemic, as depending on what happens with the spread of COVID-19, you get the idea. Things are going to continue to change. We've got to continue to be strategic. So, knowing what to do next involves having a really clear sense of what's happening with the people in your bullseye. With that said, how do we develop a strategy, not just a strategy, a strategic plan, an actionable way forward based upon the foundation that we've just laid? And so that's where we're going today. And I appreciate you kind of coming with me on the little recap journey, because it's really important to have all those sort of balls in the air, if you will, as we think about this next step. And when we think about the next step, it's about deciding what to do. What is it that your business needs most? And this harkens back to one of the earliest questions we asked on the first strategy stream, which is, if there were one thing that your business needed most moving forward, what would that be? Is it that you need more prospects? Do you need more of the prospects that you have to purchase? In other words, do you need a higher closing rate? Is it that you need to have your existing customers buy more frequently if it's a repeat sale? Is it that you need to improve your web traffic? Because maybe your website does a great job of leading people to make a decision to raise their hand or make a purchase or whatever, but you just aren't getting enough of the right kind of visitors to your website. Is it the number of visitors, or is it the quality of those visitors, right? In other words, so I really want you to have in mind, what is the most important outcome that you need from your marketing? I say more globally, what's the one thing you need in your business? And I do mean that, but I also want to make sure that to some degree we're talking about something marketing can impact. And of course, it can impact all the things I've listed so far, but maybe in your business, as you think about the thing you need, like in other words, if you said, well, what I need most is capital to work with, investment capital. Well, then you may need a marketing outreach that's targeted at investors, in which case you need to think about the bullseye, not as your customer, but the right investor, right? And work through that process again strategically to attract the right investor. So it's not that marketing can't impact that, but do you understand what I'm saying? Like, I really want to focus on an outcome that you need. And that will help you make a decision about what you need next. But I'm going to show you today a framework that we developed over a number of years that we've only shown in this form to just a few people. And it's a form that I like, and it's a useful way to approach the decision about what do you need to do. But it is kind of new in the sense that while the ideas that are contained in it are ones that we've used in some form or another for decades, it's not something that we've rolled out to many people. So you're going to be one of the first to see it in this form. And so I'm gonna pull this up and bring it up onto screen so that we can look at it together. And I'm really excited about showing this to you, because I feel like this could, well, you be the judge. I feel like it could be something that's fairly profound for a lot of businesses and organizations, that might be nonprofits or whatever. So when we think about marketing and sales, I'm really thinking primarily about marketing, but you'll see I have a sales function in this. We think about three main ideas that marketing is often, connected with. And I've got these here as circles. So you'll see I've got a blue circle, and these are verbs, right? Is it marketing's job to brand your business? Is it marketing's job to attract the right people into your business? And or is it marketing's job to convert those people that see your branding or are attracted through your marketing efforts or whatever into either customers or prospects or whatever? So that convert step might not be purely sales, but sometimes it really is. I mean, for example, if you have an e-commerce business and your marketing is there to drive people to your website so they can put a product in a shopping cart and check out, well then marketing and sales are more tightly aligned than maybe in some other types of businesses, right? So in any case, we have three big ideas. And a lot of times when people think about marketing, they're thinking about one or more of these ideas. They want to know, should I spend my energy branding my business? Should I spend my energy attracting people to my business? Or should I spend my energy converting? And you'll see that I've got this laid out as a Venn diagram. So there are places that these three ideas overlap. And you might have figured out by now that one of the more strategic ways to approach that, how do I move forward, is to identify where you're strong and where you're weak. If you've got a particular weakness in one of these three areas, well then maybe that's going to be the place you focus the most. But can you find a spot in the middle? And I believe my pointer is showing up here on the screen. Can you find a spot in the middle where these ideas overlap? And if so, are there activities that you can focus your energy on that will impact all three, right? So brand, attract, convert, those three big ideas. Now here's the problem. When we're small businesses, if you're an entrepreneur, business owner, maybe you work on a small business team, you probably don't have the budget to spend your time and your money branding. And so I actually like to if you're Budweiser, let's say, I'm just going to use, I think about companies that buy Super Bowl ads. The Super Bowl ads are rarely about converting people into customers. They're about telling the brand story and just branding the business and reinforcing that, hey, we're here. Coca-Cola, Budweiser, Geico, Progressive, these companies that spend huge budgets on advertising and branding. For most of us that are in small businesses, that's just not practical for us. We have to get $10, $20, $100 back for every $1 that we spend on marketing. And so if we're going to put all of our resources in the branding basket, we're not going to sell much. Let's be real. I mean, there are some small businesses that have just killer brands that if they brand, it just works. But most of us, that's just not going to be the case. because branding is a place where we can invest a lot of energy and not get much return. So in reality, when I think about a small business, I'm actually going to move that brand circle a little off to the side here, and I'm going to say that the biggest areas that we're going to focus on are going to be in attracting the right people and then converting them. And sure, if we can also then find a spot where we can overlap a little with branding, well then great. But for most of us, we're gonna spend our energies here. All right. So tracking so far, I want to show you this is rudimentary graphics, but I think it serves to get the idea across that this is the same set of ideas, right? If you take the blue branding, the red attract, and the yellowish green convert, then we have these sort of same ideas, but now we're thinking about the journey that a customer might take, but we're thinking about it from the standpoint of the customer. So at the top, we have awareness. And a lot of what branding does is just create awareness, increase awareness, maybe reinforce awareness. But I show it as disconnected here. It's kind of up in the cloud. That's not a tech cloud, by the way. It's just a cloud because it's up there disconnected from everything else. I put it there because a lot of times when we're trying to be strategic with our resources, awareness is necessary, but it's not the thing we're trying to create, right? So if you think about what your marketing does, but you think about it from the standpoint of a buyer, your prospect, the person in your bullseye, right? Do you want to create awareness? Well, I mean, sure, but what we really want to do is capture their interest. So when the customer, we're thinking about this from the customer standpoint, the red activities are going to be the things that cause them to develop interest in your product. So I think you might agree, that's much more effective than awareness that your business exists, right? If they're developing interest, then that's the right step forward. And yeah, there's a certain kind of funnel-ish shape here. The funnel is often overdone, and I'm not trying to create a funnel here necessarily. But you'll see if we're investing in red activities, the attract activities, right? Then our customers will develop interest, hopefully. And some smaller number of those people will then proceed to a step where they're going to learn more. That could mean that they visit your website and read some articles. It could mean that they download something from your website, a free report, a course, a trial offer thing, a coupon or whatever. They're learning more about your business. Maybe they have an appointment with a salesperson, depending on the type of business that you're in. Then the yellow phase here, which again harkens back to our concentric circles. This is where we're moving to converting this person into a customer. Our efforts are to convert them. But from their standpoint, this is where they're evaluating options and they're beginning to think about justifying their decision. And then green is where the money changes hands and that's where they buy. So from the customer journey standpoint, we're thinking about them developing interest first, learning second, evaluating and justifying third, and then the smallest number of people, most likely, will buy. And this is a rudimentary idea. This isn't rocket science here, but I want you to think about these stages that a customer might go through from the standpoint of the customer, and I want you to give that some consideration in your own business. Where are you strong right now? Does your business attract a lot of people to your brand? In other words, does your website show up well in Google search results? Do you have a large reach with your social media posts, let's say? If you're not doing digital focused things as much, or if you're doing things that are outside the realm of digital as well, we might be talking about how often do people drive by your billboard? How often do they see your mail pieces? We have clients that, for example, are in the service business sector, and they're selling products and services to people who are homeowners, and we get, I can't tell you, here in my house, I get pieces, several a week, that are sort of large 4-color magazine style things that are just nothing but advertisements. And they're loaded with, in Florida where I am, pool businesses, paver companies, cabinet manufacturers, dealers, pest control companies, painting contractors, remodeling. You get the idea, right? You're familiar with these. If you're running one of those types of businesses, well, then the red for you that we're seeing, from your customer's point of view, might be how many of those people are seeing your stuff and developing an interest in your product. Or your service, your business. And then when we think about learning, so in other words, how strong are you at getting eyeballs on your information, your content, your ideas, or whatever it might be, so that people are developing an interest? And then secondly, how strong are you at having them move to that next step where they learn? In other words, do you have places for them to go to learn about that? How easy is it for them to learn? Do they have to speak with someone? Can they serve themselves information on your website? Do you have content on your website that helps them learn? Then do you have content that's specific to helping them evaluate and justify? That's more sales content, right? And then do you have a mechanism for them to buy? So what I want to ask you to do is give yourself a score here. How strong are you with your bullseye, target market people? How strong are you at having them develop interest? Maybe give it a 1 to 5 score. Maybe you say, well, I'm a 3 right now. I'm not at 0, but I need to grow that. How strong are you then at this next phase at helping them learn? How easy is it for them to learn? How effective is your mechanisms that you have in place that help them learn about your business? Give yourself a score there, 1 to 5. 1 being not great, 5 being we're where we need to be. How strong are you at the sales part of this? And again, if you're running an e-commerce business, all 4 of these things might happen on your website. They run a Google search that causes them to develop interest. They click, they learn about the product, and then they get into the nitty-gritty details where you have sales copy that helps them with the features and functions. That's hopefully written in a compelling way, but it is not really truly marketing information, but it's more sales information, right? That helps them evaluate and justify. And then, what are your buying mechanisms? How does that work? What does that look like? Give yourself a score on all 4 of these, okay? So once you've given yourself a score on all 4 of those, then I want you to look at your scores and ask yourself, where is it that I could stand to have the most improvement? And this is a subjective, I said give yourself a score 1 to 5, and you could easily look at the lowest scoring area. But in reality, the decisions about what to do next are a little more complicated than just saying, well, I got a low score on the buy part, and so that's where I have to focus. In some businesses, it might be that simple. In other businesses, it might be that, there may not be a lot of room for improvement there. You may not have the resources, to do what it would take to make that improvement. So maybe what you need to do is just radically increase the number of people who start at the top of that process and develop interest. And if you could somehow get a lot more of the people who are in your bullseye to begin the journey, well, then maybe your buying function would be sufficient. So I don't want to oversimplify the decision. I also don't want to overcomplicate it, right? There's some useful... it's effective and helpful to have some objective scores there. And so once you have that sense, then we can start to look at mechanisms. All right. So what I want to do now is take a look with you at sort of bringing these ideas together from what we've been looking at so far today. So aligning these things side by side, if we want the customer to have awareness, well, then we might engage in work that is intended to brand your business. So these are our verbs here. These are the things, when we think about creating a plan for moving forward, we think about verbs, right? Are we going to brand the business? Are you super weak in that area and you need to brand the business? Well, then maybe that might be the activity that we want to engage in. But again, for most small businesses, we're going to start right here in the red zone. So if we are weak in the area of getting people to develop an interest in the business, then we want to attract more people. We're going to use this verb. And then out to the side here, we're looking at how do we measure the impact? How do we measure change in our effectiveness in this area. So if we just take the attract function of marketing, how would we measure whether we're being effective at that? Well, one way we would measure that is in visibility online. I don't have to make the case, I hope, that all of us need to be visible online. And so if you are one of the nearly 50% of the businesses in the United States that does not yet have a website, then you might need to start right here, okay? Because visibility online is key. And I realize there are other ways to be visible online. You don't necessarily, not every business has to have a website. Although, if you hire me as a consultant, I'm going to tell you, you have to have a website. Because the arguments that I hear about not having a website are, well, we have a Yelp result and they're the top result on Google search for our type of business anyway, and we're right up there at the top, or we have a Facebook page or our Instagram account or our, whatever it might be. I hear a lot of that stuff, and there's one fundamental flaw with those, and then I'm going to get off the soapbox. I won't spend a lot of time here, but if you're one of those people who says, yeah, I don't really need a website, let's be real. You don't own any of those other platforms. The minute that Facebook decides that your business doesn't meet their criteria anymore, the minute that Yelp decides that their extortion efforts to get you to pay the money are no longer effective and you're not paying them anymore, or somebody else is just willing to pay more, then guess what? Your visibility can be diminished and potentially disappear. And it happens every day. So please own your real estate where we're talking about your visibility online. I'm not saying don't use those other things, but I'm saying you've got to have a piece of the web that belongs to you. So, end of rant. Soapbox over. Visibility online is often going to be measured by search volume. In other words, do you have people coming to your website because they ran Google searches? So when we're looking again at how do we measure change in this activity, in other words, if we were to focus our energies on attracting people into your business, how would you know if it was working? Well, you would get more search traffic, either Google search. I do realize there are other search engines, but for strategy reasons, we're only talking about Google. Local search, especially if you're a local business that serves a local market, whether people come to you or whether you go to them. If you serve a local market, then you need to be visible in local search, and that's a different thing than just being visible in broader Google search. And if you don't necessarily serve a geographic market, then local search doesn't matter to you at all. But what about voice search? As we began talking more often to our smartphones, or if you have a Siri device in your house, if you have an Alexa device in your house, if you have a Google Home or one of these products that you talk to, then that kind of search has revolutionized how we approach visibility online in recent years. And so maybe you have traditionally had a strong presence in broader Google search, but your voice search visibility is low. Visibility is kind of a funny way to think about it because a lot of times it's just an audible answer, but it's a much different game. So that's one way that we would measure whether we're having an impact and actually becoming more effective at attracting people into our business. Another way that we might measure that might be social reach. In other words, does our Facebook page or our posts on Facebook, are they reaching enough people? Does that change over time? Facebook is a little bit of a losing game because more and more it's purely a pay-to-play platform, and effectiveness there is going to, for most, huge caveat here, for most small businesses, effectiveness on Facebook is going to be you got to post frequently to keep your page alive, but then if you really want to have any kind of serious reach, you're going to end up paying money to Facebook. And then ultimately at the end of all of this is, are we getting traffic to our website? And we can measure traffic to our social platforms, yes. But when we're measuring our effectiveness at attracting people, at some point we want to get them over to our website. And that is because then, as people move from developing interest in our business to learning more, then, if we want to increase our effectiveness at helping them do this, well, then we need to become more effective at engaging with these people. What do I mean by engaging with them? If we want to increase engagement with our business, then we've got to be good at crafting offers that cause people to raise their hand. And we're going to spend more time on some specific ways to do this in a future session. But just for the sake of helping you understand what I mean by this, it's actually, in some ways, it's actually a conversion step. So I'm going to lay out for you something I call the breadcrumb analogy. And it involves thinking about what you sell, your true product or service, as a loaf of bread, right? Let's say you want people to buy your loaf of bread. How are you going to be effective at getting them to buy your loaf of bread? Well, in the digital era, one of the ways that we think about this is we use breadcrumbs. And breadcrumbs in this analogy might be blog posts that we wrote on our website, that we published on our website. It might be social media posts. It might be ads that we run. Could be a magazine ad or a direct mail piece or whatever. It's a breadcrumb. If they pick it up and taste it, it tastes like the loaf. But it's not the loaf. It doesn't satisfy. It just gives them a taste. And sure, you can tell your brand story in your breadcrumbs. You can do various things. But our goal with attracting people is that we put the breadcrumbs out there and borrow from any breadcrumb-based story that you might want to. Breadcrumbs are to lead people somewhere. Right? You put the crumbs, and your goal is to get them to follow a path that you've laid out so that they can engage with the process that works well, right? At some point, we want to offer them a slice of bread, right? So they've followed some breadcrumbs. If they're still following the breadcrumbs, they're picking up what you're putting down, so to speak, then there should be a way that they can get a free slice. Different businesses, this will look different ways. But I want to urge you, if you don't already have something in place that is a free offer related to your business, that this is something that you must work on immediately. It could be a free trial. So if you're a carpet cleaner, you might say, look, we'll come and clean, 1 square yard of carpet or whatever it might be. And prove to you that our process works and allow people to sign up on your website. Hopefully, because low friction, we want it to be as easy as possible. Yeah, schedule a time and, let them sign up and have you come out and clean a little sample of their carpet. And of course, we all know how that goes. You clean the one bit and it shows how dirty the rest is. And now they're like, well, yeah, now I need to buy the whole carpet cleaning service. It's a great sales tool, but it's a free offer. It could be that you offer a free consultation. If you sell services, for example, in our business, a lot of times that's one of the ways that we'll start with people is that they get a free 25-minute consultation to talk about what their needs are. And that's absolutely free. And it's part of our breadcrumb strategy. That is a slice of our bread. And in fact, in our analogy, that really is true, that a lot of the work we do, strategy work and services we provide is something we can give you a taste of, a small taste. It's not a huge taste. It's not of zero value, but it also is not too much value so that someone takes the slice of bread and goes, okay, now I don't need the loaf, right? So there's some balancing that you need to do in there. But for many businesses, it's not about a free trial or a free consultation. For many businesses, this free offer could be something that someone can download from your website. In other words, it could be a free report. It could be an e-course. It could be a download, a PDF, a video, a series of videos. It could be, in other words, it could be digital content that's of high value that helps the bullseye, the person who's in your bullseye, come and get something of value from you that helps them. And so, what are some examples of this? And again, we can do a deeper dive on a future session. But one of the things that we've put out is a free PDF that talks about 5 ways to increase your response. So if you're running ads, offline ads, digital ads, if you're sending emails, if you're putting social media posts out there or blog posts or whatever, what are 5 ways to increase the response that you get? Now, that would be useful to think about, wouldn't it? If you thought that somebody who had some expertise was willing to share that expertise with you for free, then would that be worth you giving up your email address in exchange for the opportunity to have your copy of that information? Yeah. And for us, that answer is most definitely yes. In other words, when we think about it as the business, which I'm sure is how you're going to think about it when you think about implementing something like this, you want to put something out there that's of high enough value that the right person would be willing to give you their email address in exchange for that slice of bread, that free thing, whatever it is. Okay, so that is a mechanism that we think of in terms of someone raising their hand. They go from being an anonymous visitor to your website or a set of eyeballs. At that point, they go from being anonymous and unknown to being a contact. At this point, when we've gotten them to engage, they've shown up on our radar. Maybe they're in our email software now because we use some email software to facilitate getting them the free download. Maybe they're in our CRM if we have a CRM tool. They've contacted our office and we've got them on the calendar now, but we have their contact information because we've scheduled a free consultation in person or a trial or whatever it might be. Okay? So that's the kind of thing that I'm talking about with engagement. And for us to be effective at engagement, if we're moving the needle there, then we're going to see that affect maybe our social media following, because there are ways to implement this strategy that are designed to help you get more Instagram followers, more Facebook page followers, more Twitter followers, whatever the social network channels are, LinkedIn, page followers, whatever it might be. You get the idea. We can measure that we've increased this by maybe social media follows, but most often in the vast majority of businesses that we're working with, we're going to try to find a way to get that email address. And so by getting engagement, we're going to increase the number of email subscribers that the business has. Okay? And you might say, well, they just downloaded a thing. They didn't really subscribe. That's true. And we've got to be careful in terms of how we think about permission to send them emails. But that's why a lot of times we'll craft this offer in a way that says you'll get the download, but we'll also follow up with a free 3-step process that whatever it is. You get the idea. So in other words, we're creating the expectation that they're not going to get one email with a link to click to download the thing, but also some more value that comes subsequent to that via email. Okay, so again, I don't want to get too lost in the tactical weeds here, but you, I hope, have some sense of what I mean by when we work on engagement, what does that translate into? So if we're thinking about the simple ways to define these, if we're more effective at attracting people, we might have more website visitors. If we are being more effective at engaging with people, we might have those website visitors converting from just visitors into contacts. And then we're going to nurture those people, and we're going to be more effective at nurturing them. If this is an area where we're weak at helping people evaluate or justify their decision, then we're going to focus on nurturing those people. And we'll measure that impact in terms of email opens and clicks, right? In other words, once someone has entered your universe as a contact, how do we then, hopefully in an automated way, where we've created a process once and then it just functions again and again and again every time someone hits our little tripwire, then the process, works. If they signed up for your free report, if they scheduled a free trial, whatever, you're gonna send them emails to nurture the relationship, to remind them of who you are. You don't want somebody to fill out your form, download your PDF, never open it, because that happens a lot, and then forget about you. No, what we want to do is continue to add value through reaching out to them with valuable contacts. Some businesses have been effective at doing this with SMS messages or Facebook Messenger or similar non-email messaging outreaches that are still online or digital in some way. I'm not as big a fan of text messaging and some of that. It truly depends on your target market and who they are and what will work well with them. So I don't want to just rule it out, but I tend to focus primarily on email for a lot of reasons. But you want to engage in a process that will nurture those relationships. And then finally, your last step, if you're thinking about where do you need to focus your energies, one place that you might need to focus, if you need more people, you got plenty of people, developing interest, plenty of people learning about your business, plenty of people evaluating and justifying that you can quantify through, email opens and clicks, let's say, or social media engagement, likes, comments, and shares on your social media posts that show you that they're actually engaged with your brand, not just eyeballs seeing something, but actually interacting with the things that you're sending. If you're strong there, you're strong in all these other places, but you just need more people to buy. Well, then the buy phase is where we close the deal, right? So our verbs, again, are attract, engage, nurture, and close. How do we measure when we're doing better at closing? Well, then we'll see revenue move. We might see retail sales increase. I have kiosks in there because we were working with a business that was rolling out effectively e-commerce. It was just face-to-face e-commerce, which I know might sound a little odd, but hey, in some businesses that works. Maybe not in yours, probably not in yours, but you never know. It could be e-commerce purchases, checkouts through the shopping cart. It could be checkouts on Amazon.com. If you have a product for sale on Amazon.com and your goal for closing the deal is to get people over to Amazon and facilitate the purchase, well, then you'll measure that way. If it's your traditional sales process that involves meeting with a salesperson from your team face-to-face or over the phone or on Zoom calls or whatever, and then at whatever point the transaction occurs, we're going to recognize revenue there, then that's where we're going to see the changes. So my question for you today is, out of these, there are technically 5 of them, but out of the 4 that I think about that matter most for most small businesses, whether you're thinking about it from how your customer experiences the process or when you're thinking about it on what you need to do, what are the areas where you feel like you need to have the biggest change transpire in your business? Do you need to attract more people? Do you need to engage more of them? Do you need to nurture more of them? Or do you need to close more of them? What are the areas where you're weakest? What are the areas that you're strongest? The way that you think about the answer to that question will have a huge impact on what you need to do specifically next. So, what if you said, you know what? I'm weak in all 4. I'm not attracting enough people. When I do attract them, they're not engaging with we're not engaging with them. We're not getting them to raise their hand. The ones that do raise their hand, we don't have any follow-up process, no nurture process in place, so that's not effective. And also, our sales process, isn't where it needs to be. I've been there. I've worked with businesses that are there. And what I can tell you is you can't work on all of them at once. You might work on each one one thing first for a while and not flesh it all the way out to where it's perfect, but just you made some substantial progress there. So now you move to the next thing and make some progress there. And you sort of make a round robin approach where you put some energy here and then you put some energy here. Don't try to do all 4 at once is what I'm trying to say. You will need to improve all of them. But moving forward with Strategy Stream, here's what we're going to do. We're going to start at the top. We're not branding. We're going to start with red. We're going to start with attract. Because in most businesses that I've seen, there's something in place. Once someone raises their hand and says, I'm interested, there's something in place. It might not be as effective as it could be. It might not be automated, but there's something. If you have a retail business, once people get in the store, you've got a point of sale station where they can check out, right? So maybe you need better trained salespeople or whatever, but you understand there's a process there. For your business, there is some process for people to make a buying decision and to actually purchase. So we're going to start with attracting people. So beginning on our next strategy stream, we're going to talk about what it means to have good visibility online. We're going to talk about what your website needs to have, what every website needs to have. We're going to talk about what makes Google like your website so that they show it to people who are running searches related to the products and services that you sell, so that when those people run searches and they meet the right criteria, Google will show them your website as a result, so that those people can visit your website and then engage with your business, hopefully allow you to nurture the relationship and then encourage them to buy. So that's where we're going to start. We're going to take a look. I'll put this back up. We're going to take a look at all of this whole process from the attract standpoint first, and then we're going to work our way down. And as we go, we'll talk about all four throughout. So it's not as though if you said, listen, I'm great at attracting, but I need my most help down here. Journey with us through Strategy Stream anyway, because you're going to find that first of all, you'll be more effective at attracting, but you'll also find that we're going to sprinkle. These are intertwined in a lot of ways anyway. So the things that are going to make you more effective at one will likely make you more effective at the others. And it isn't to say that we won't focus on each one, because we definitely will. But you're going to become more effective at all four of these in what comes next through the Strategy Stream process. And so I'm looking forward to sharing that with you. And I'm looking forward to helping you see positive outcomes. And as we wind up for today, I just want to add one last thought here. And that is, if you are hearing something useful, you're hearing something important, something helpful, let us know. Shoot us an email. We set up an email address that you can use. It's hello@growthedream.com. And it's a way for you to just reach out and say, hey, I saw something on Strategy Stream. I have a question, I have a comment, or whatever it might be. Then why don't you shoot us an email at hello@growthedream.com. We'd love to hear from you there. Also, if you visit the Strategy Stream page on our website, growthedream.com/strategystream, you'll find a place there that you can sign up for a reminder. If you want to get an email before we go live every week, we'll shoot you a little quick reminder. It just says, hey, we're going live. We're not using that email address for any other purpose right now. It's just purely to send you a reminder. So it's just something that we're doing as part of Strategy Stream to help be hopefully valuable. But also, we're going to get into the nitty-gritty of developing a plan of action for your business. And I hope you're starting to see that we've sketched in some pieces, and we're going to go back and add detail. And I do believe that you're going to find that you have an effective plan moving forward. And I really look forward to having the opportunity to help you accomplish that in your business. So by all means, join us again next week, Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern. And we look forward to having you with us on our next Strategy Stream. And we're also excited about moving out of 2020 into the future in a way that's going to cause us to all be more effective and to allow our businesses to thrive. So look forward to hearing from you. Thank you for being here today, and we'll see you next time on Strategy Stream.